You say you'd like some postseason tournament discussion? How about baseball, softball, and soccer? Athlete of the Week? We've got that too. All that and more coming up on this week's installment of Varsity 360, and it starts right now. Hi there everyone, Mark Coleman here from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network, welcoming you to a look at the week's top stories in Fredericksburg area high school sports. We call it Varsity 360. You can find us here each week at fredericksburg.com, the online home of the Freelance Star. Each week, I am very happy to be joined by members from the FLS Varsity team, part of the Freelance Star Sports Department. They've got a lot of jobs, including focusing on area high school sports, so I always appreciate their time and insight. I've got two of the very best with me this week. Joining me from the Freelance Star, we have sports reporter T. Nathan Warters. Nathan, welcome.
T. Nathan, nice touch.
Yeah, I learned something about you this
Back
week.
from probation.
Back from probation. Yes, yes.
And, where'd you learn that from?
We can
talk about that later.
And also, we have assistant sports editor Justin Rice. I don't know your middle initial.
Just
so,
Justin. Just Justin.
Just Justin.
And remember, I did not tell you.
You did not tell me that.
I did not tell you
Okay.
the T part.
I will not let anyone know.
Probably
Not my
Taft.
word. Probably Taft.
Yeah, it's always
Yes.
Taft.
It's always Taft. Well, fellas, the school year is winding down, but the postseason is winding up, I suppose. It's always fun, I guess, at the end of a sports season when the playoffs start. That hope almost, resumes. You got the hope of a new season, and then the second season of postseason comes around, and you never know. You go on a heater, and you could really make a run, make it into the state tournament. Who knows what could happen?
Well, I'll tell you what I like, and with the new format, for its advantages, I suppose, but also there's a lot of coaches who sort of dislike the de-emphasis on the regular season. I think you can certainly feel that, where the regular season isn't quite what it used to be. So I like that they're going to get to the tournament where, okay, now let's start figuring out who the best teams are and who's going to make a playoff run and things like that. Because we spent a whole bunch of the regular season playing games that maybe meant, I don't say meaningless, but maybe meant less. How about that?
Yeah, I was talking to Colonial Forge's girls soccer coach a couple weeks ago, and he was like, it's a shame only 6 of our games count.
Yeah.
That's really the way it is. So, you're absolutely right. You get to the postseason, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now, it's crunch time. Let's get it done.
Mm-hmm. And you did not earn any work you did in the regular season, unlike before, you did not earn a playoff bid, a region tournament bid. You're a good team. You come out and go one and done in the conference tournament. That might be it for you.
That's it.
Yeah. And it's been a weird weather season as well. I suppose it happens every spring, but a lot of weather that has postponed and delayed games. That means that it's a lot of important setup games for conference tournaments that are being compressed into short time frames, and particularly in sports like baseball, that really could have an impact. We've talked about this, but it's happening to a couple of teams that are playing some long games.
Was there a long game this week?
There were a couple of long games this week. Yeah, absolutely. I actually called one last night, River Bend and Stafford. It was absolutely a wonderful game, well played on both sides. River Bend was able to pull it out, an important Conference 4 victory for them. It actually guarantees them at least a number 3 seed for the conference tournament. We're recording this on Wednesday. They're going to be playing, they're playing Colonial Forge as we speak. It looks like it might be rain. There might be rain in the forecast, so hopefully they're able to get that in. But Forge and River Bend playing tonight, Wednesday night, for the number 2 seed. Bend went 12 innings last night against Stafford. They had to go, it was 7 innings by Eric Bird and then 5 innings from Anthony Burke. So their 2 stud pitchers are basically done for the game against Forge. Mountain View and North Stafford played a 17-inning game a couple of nights ago. So been some exciting baseball in the area, but it really does stretch you thin.
Well, it'll certainly test your limits, and but that's a lot of what I think the baseball postseason is about. Is do you have a staff that can survive it and so on? I think the good news for all these teams, especially with Conference 4 conference tournament, you've got this weekend to recover. Well, the Conference 4 tournament I think going to start on Tuesday. Yeah, and go from there. But you're going to get into the conference games, and you're going to have guys that can go multiple innings, and not quite back-to-back days, but pretty close. Conference 4, only the one team gets the bye, the
Right.
top seed. So
Hilton is clearly the class of the Conference 4 at this point.
Yep.
Ran the table in conference 6-0, and has really looked to be a threat at the state level.
yeah, so I think with Forge and Riverbend there, they're going to end up on the same side of the bracket, probably to meet in the semifinals. You know, if all goes their way, they meet in the semifinals and probably playing for a regional bid right there between the two of them.
Potentially, although it's possible that they could end up in the finals, in the conference finals as well, since they're fighting for the whoever is going to be the number 2 seed would be, not meeting for Hilton until that conference finals. But
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what goes on. It's the thing about baseball. It's a one game
Absolutely.
shot. It's not like professionals where you're playing a best of 5, best of 7 series. It's a one game shot, and anything can happen on any given night. As I guess that's a football cliche.
I think we've seen that with all the baseball.
appropriate.
22, right, is just as close right that.
Yeah, Eastern View doing what they normally do, coming on strong at the end, and looks like King George and Chancellor are there battling they'll be there battling for that other region spot in the tournament. So I think all the tournaments are there's going to be kind of a crunch there in the championship game. They're trying to earn those 2 seeds for the region.
Yeah.
I think in almost, if you look across the board at different sports, there seems to be a pretty clear number 1 in most of the sports, but then that second and third team.
There's some good, exciting competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Now in Conference 15 matters a little less. Conference 15 is going to get 3 teams from each sport, going to move on to the region bid. So
Right.
yeah.
Conference 15 baseball exciting as well. So you've got Potomac against Mountain View on Thursday. Mountain View with a big victory over Massaponax.
Yep.
Boy, this Dylan Hall looks really, really sharp. I was able to see him in a game against Riverbend last week, a game that was actually delayed by lightning and ends up being a non-game. It's a non-conference game, so it doesn't really matter. But he looked really strong. Just a sophomore. He's going to be something. I'm telling you guys.
Steve
We got to keep an
Franzel,
eye out for this
covered
guy.
the game last night and said that Virginia Tech had a scout out there looking at him. It's 6'4", big kid. He's already on the radar, so he looks like he's going to be a special one here.
He's got that classic motion. I mean, he looks almost Roger Clemens-like on the mound. I'm not sure that that's the best comparison to use, but in his heyday, I mean, he just has that.
He
has
raised
that
the
compact. I raised the bar and also lowered it in some other regards.
I think let's try to be John Maine first before we work on being Roger Clemens.
The point being that he has a very effective delivery that looks like it's going to be, it bodes well for him.
Gotcha.
And I'm not sure how long he has, worked to perfect that, but he's got good size, good mechanics. That's a nice combination. If you're gonna be a pitcher, those are 2 good qualities to have.
Yeah.
You get there as a sophomore too. That's
sophomore,
impressive.
yeah.
If you got efficient delivery and you're not wasting a lot of motion there, especially for a 6'4" kid. That's I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what he does.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
North Stafford Brook Point in the other semifinal tomorrow. Championship game, consolation game Tuesday, with the higher seeds hosting. So you're looking at Potomac possibly hosting the championship game if they come by. And then the losers from tomorrow's games, Thursday's games, are still going to move on and play a consolation game.
There's
There's a third spot. There's a third spot available there for one of those teams.
Yeah. So an interesting situation there in Conference 15. So good stuff. The conference tournament moves to the semifinals on Thursday for Conference 15 softball. We've got North Stafford, Mountain View, and Brook Point, Massaponax on Thursday. Some good matchups here on the softball side.
This has been a real competitive conference. All 4 of those teams, beating each other and so on. We wrote on our season preview story on Brook Point. They won the fall league, so they've got talent. I think Mountain View had the best player back with Taylor Levesque. They've got talent. North Stafford has emerged with a bunch of young players. They look good and have won some key games down the stretch, including a win over Mountain View at the end of the regular season.
Right.
And then Massaponax is, of course, the 1 seed. So there you go. 4 teams. They got 3 spots to play out. One of those teams not going to the region tournament, and that'll play out, Thursday, of course, and then Tuesday for the championship games and the consolation games.
Some high intrigue there. Lots of competition.
Yes.
And that's one conference, one of the few conferences, I guess, where there hasn't been significant separation of the 1 seed from the rest.
Yeah, but the Commonwealth District softball has been really, really competitive, top to bottom, for a couple years now. A lot of girls come through, a lot of different schools. You got a pitcher and a girl or 2 who can hit, and I think it's been competitive, and that's bared out now with those guys.
Yeah, makes it exciting, certainly. How about Conference 22?
Yeah, in Conference 22. King George and Fauquier is what we've talked about all year. And King George, of course, at the end of the regular season with the huge win against Fauquier. So they split the regular season.
Their 2 games.
2 spots going to come out of Conference 22 onto the region tournament. And you got to think it's going to be King George and Fauquier. the one is going to get to host a game, the champion, and the two will be on the road for the region tournament.
Right.
So I think Fauquier, King George, Chapter 3, I think you look for that in the conference tournament game. We'll see how that plays out next week.
Okay, deal. Sounds good. I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. Not that I ever disagree with you, but I feel like that's.
I didn't go out on a huge limb.
That was not a huge limb there.
Not a huge limb.
Well, meanwhile, in Conference 4, the story of the season thus far has been Hilton and Forest Park. Riverbend, however, has been making a late bid, and they've got a chance of making some noise here.
Yeah, the Bears play Colonial Forge on Wednesday night with a chance to tie Forest Park and Hilton for first place. Is there a more competitive conference around here? I mean, you get 3 teams that are vying for the top seed there. They've all kind of beat up on each other. It's kind of been like a round robin type thing, and now kind of fighting for that top spot. So that'll be interesting to see how that game ends up and see if they do have a kind of a log jam there at the top.
And again, with 2 teams coming out, one of those teams has been really competitive and is not going to be at the region tournament.
Yeah. And you say conference regular season games don't count. Clearly they do, but in this situation, and we've seen others where you almost feel like you'd like to have more conference games, the fact that they have so few means that you've got these odd, everyone has beaten each other so that there's this weird tie and you have to resolve the tiebreaker in some arbitrary
coin
fashion.
flip, something like that. If you know me, I like stats and numbers and statistics and probabilities and things like that. And with these guys, right now, just how one of the, I think the flaws of the conference schedule right now is, of course, that you're only playing 5 or 6 games, and if it's close, that's not enough iterations to get any kind of statistical separation. We saw it in volleyball this past fall in Conference 15, where it was a really wacky tiebreaker situation where they had 3 or 4 teams all with the same record.
Yeah.
I think any of these sports where if they're only going to play each other once and there's only that one game to decide, you're going to get into the circular firing squad that Hilton and Riverbend Forest Park, Riverbend, and Hilton have now in the softball, where I beat you beat Nathan, and Nathan beat me. Who's the best team?
But you also have the, in terms of like the Stafford County schools, they all play each other twice, but only one game counts.
Yeah.
So you're looking at their final results, and you're like, well, if they had counted those games, this would be a real easy sell. But I mean, at this point, they only count the second game they play, and this is the way the system works.
That's the way it is. Yeah.
That's true. But ultimately, they make it to their conference tournament, and you're going to get a winner from that. So it gets resolved one way or another.
One way or another, you're going to have a chance to get out on the field and play for your spot.
If the point was to make the postseason, that much more critical, they've
Mission
really
accomplished.
Maybe that is the answer. Maybe that's a good way of looking at it. The conference tournament maybe is more significant than the district tournament was, but the district regular season is more significant than the conference regular season is. Maybe that's a good way.
All right. Wow, we've agreed on something. Well, that's a look at softball around the area. How about we turn our attention now to soccer, and there's been some good stories on the girls' side, Nathan.
Yeah, Conference 22, Cortland's been in control for pretty much the whole year. They obviously have the top seed, but a team to look out for is Chancellor. They've not lost in the last 11 games. Actually tied Cortland 1-1. The only non-loss on Cortland's docket this year has been that tie about a week ago. So that could be an interesting conference tournament. Chancellor's playing a lot better. I talked to the coach the other day. He said that they had some injuries early in the year. They've kind of reshuffled things. Alex Berg, Maddie Amos, their 2 strikers have really kind of come on strong here, scoring a lot of goals for them. They could be a team to be reckoned with. And that kind of mimics some of the other races in the girls' game. Conference 4, Forest Park is the top seed, but Forge is right there behind them. Forge made it all the way to state semis last year. They're a team that has the talent to contend. And, in Conference 15, Mountain View's out front, but look out for Massaponax, look out for Brook Point. Those are 2 teams that have kind of stuck around there, and they can do some damage there and come conference
I
tournament
love
time.
Chancellor Cortland. That's like old school Battlefield.
Yeah.
Chancellor Cortland, let's go.
There's just something that, and it just sounds good. There's just something about it that the meter there is right.
I think that rivalry has sort of cooled a little bit in recent years, but gosh, it's fun to see sometimes back in the old days. Maybe, so it'll be fun if it comes down to those 2 again.
Yeah, and I mean, I covered the game. It was April 1st. Cortland won 7-1, and and the coach told me that they weren't really together at that point, and they've gotten their team kind of they're gelling, and now they're kind of they're a lot better. And last week the tie really kind of
Clearly
proved
something's
it.
changed.
So
Yeah.
You go from 7-1 to 1-1. It's it's a pretty big change there.
Absolutely.
It's a 6-goal differential.
Yeah.
I think I have.
I do the math. Then.
You're just.
It's 6.
What is it with you and math tonight? That's impressive. That is impressive. Well, how about on the boys' side for soccer?
Oh, on the boys' side, I think it's a lot of what we talked about all year, especially in 22, where Chancellor has been, I think far and away the best team. and are in pretty good shape going into the postseason. I think then 15 is really interesting too. North Stafford with a good first-round conference tournament upset over Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom was the 3 seed. North Stafford was the 6, right? So North Stafford moves on and gets into that Final Four. You got Mountain View or Massaponax and Potomac and Mountain View and North Stafford. 4 teams, 3 are going to move on to the region tournament. So that's going to be. It's been pretty competitive, I think, throughout. Massaponax probably the best team, and in the regular season at least. But I think any one of those 4 teams you look at and go, this is going to be a game, and let's figure out who doesn't get to move on is what they'll determine what in the consolation and the championship game on Tuesday. Yeah.
An interesting way of looking at it, but I suppose that's accurate. Yeah, so which teams do get to advance as well, but by doing that, they determine who will not advance.
Yeah.
The beauty of sport, there's a winner and a loser there, right?
Indeed.
Massaponax hasn't lost too many games this season. I think that they rolled off an undefeated conference regular season. I believe that's accurate.
That's correct.
They finished with a 3-0 victory over Brook Point on Friday. Another outstanding performance. This team really, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, they started out a little bit of a surprise. They knocked off some of the bigger schools, and they have just continued to roll, and it's been very impressive. On Friday night, an impressive performance from Abduli Wada, a very fun name to say as well. Abduli Wada with 3 goals, the hat trick in the victory over Brook Point, and in fact, by way of that hat trick, Abduli Wada is the Varsity 360 Athlete of the Week, sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings in Central Park. Congratulations to Abduli Wada. A very impressive performance, and coincidentally is also going to be featured in a feature story in the Freelance Star that comes out, I believe it's on Thursday. Is that right?
Yeah, it's in Thursday morning's paper. Abduli and some of his teammates, they've got 3 players on their team that are all immigrants that have just sort of interesting backgrounds and the hurdles they've overcome to be where they are today and so on. And Taft Coghill wrote a real nice story about that, and that'll be in Thursday's paper, Abduli and some of the other Panthers there. So yeah, you should check that out.
I am anxious to see that. I don't get any advance readings or copies of the stories as much as I would like. These guys never asked me to proofread or contribute. Hint, hint. But yeah, it sounds great. And I tell you, these are the kinds of stories that I always enjoy. I mean, I enjoy applauding and recognizing high level of athleticism, but it's the human interest stories. It's what these kids are learning and doing and will be becoming in their future selves. Well, how's that for a phrase? You can use that, Nathan, if you'd like. But those are the things that really get me excited, and so I'm anxious, eager to read this article. So Abduli Wada, congratulations, the Varsity 360 Athlete of the Week, and looking forward to this article on the young kids there at Massaponax High School. We have some news and notes from around the region. There were some interesting signings or commitments, I guess, in the high school basketball world. Nathan, I guess you broke this story earlier this week, right?
Yeah, on Tuesday, over the weekend, I went down to Hampton to the Boo Williams facility down there to see the Nike EYBL AAU tournament, which is all these teams, all these great teams, greatest players in the country come down and play. And I was doing a story on Marco Haskins and, really kind of doing all this recruiting stuff. And for some reason, it just I didn't really think about some of the other players in the area who might be, on the verge of signing or on the verge of committing. And this week we had one, Jalen Franklin, who plays with Haskins at Colonial Forge. He committed to the Naval Academy, Division I program of the Patriot League. Hadn't had any offers up until recently. One of the assistant coaches was at the championship game, saw him play, and they came in and offered him recently, and he committed on Tuesday. So, a really great accomplishment. I mean,
awesome.
Around here, I'm not sure how often. I've only been here for 2 years, but I'm not sure how often a public school player commits to a Division I school. We usually have the guys that go off to the prep schools or something like that.
Right.
So, a really cool deal for a kid in the area to commit to a D1 school. And then back on Haskins, he's definitely in the running for a Division I scholarship as well. Boo Williams, who is a legend in the sport, in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, told me, he goes, I've never had a kid not get a scholarship. So Haskins is going to get his scholarship sometime soon. So.
And a good quality character kid too. So
they all are.
Yeah.
Those Forge kids. Franklin, I talked to Franklin yesterday. Really polite kid. Has a lot going for him. And Haskins is the same way. they'll bring a lot of character to wherever they go.
Now, Franklin is just a junior, though, so really interesting there that he's committed to Navy as a junior. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, and this is kind of when the basketball players start making their commitments. Haskins is a junior as well, so usually it's this time of year for these kids when they're actually getting seen in the AAU game. They actually start getting the offers, and I think Franklin just saw it as being a good fit and wanted to go ahead and pull the trigger and make the decision. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congratulations to Jalen Franklin on his commitment there to Navy. So great stuff. Thanks, Nathan.
Yep.
Fellas, it's always a pleasure. I enjoy your time. I think that next week we're looking at possibly we might take it on the road. We'll see what we can do here. Get the band together and hit the road. I think we've got a van, and maybe we don't have a van just yet. But yeah, we'll see. Hey, you know what? If you'd like for us to come to your school and shoot on location, why don't you tweet me? I'm at Mark Coleman V2SN. Certainly love to hear from you on that. Actually, I think we may be doing something on location. We haven't worked out all the details just yet, but it might be fun.
That might be fun.
It's always fun chatting with the wonderful crew here from the FLS Varsity. These are good guys, and they do very, very good work, trying very hard to recognize the area high school sports scene and to get that story out to folks. So appreciate the time. We've got Mr. Justin Rice and Mr. T. Nathan Warters here. I appreciate and enjoy spending some time with you. So thanks for being on the show, fellas.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's installment of Varsity 360. Certainly appreciate you watching for the Virginia Varsity Sports Network. I'm Mark Coleman. Thanks for watching, folks.